You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
You're listening to Mission Log the Orville, an episode-by-episode discussion of the adventures of the crew of the USS Orville. Welcome to another episode of Mission Log the Orville. Join us as we explore the three-dimensional crew of the USS Orville and seek out the meanings, morals, and messages in the episode New Dimensions to see if it aligns with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. My name is Mike Richards.
And I'm Jessica Lynn Verdi. I was trying to think of what dimension I might be, but I'm definitely three-dimensional.
At least three, Jess.
At least. Mission Log the Orville is a conversation that depends on your participation. You're going to share our thoughts, and you can share your thoughts, ideas, and tell us what we missed at ML_the Orville at Twitter, Mission Log Pod on Facebook, or you can email us at missionlog-theorville at roddenberry.com. If you're watching this on the Roddenberry YouTube channel, be sure to hit like and subscribe. You might be watching this live with us right now during the premiere. And remember, we might just use your comments on an upcoming episode, so be nice to us. And now, here's Mike with the episode's recap.
Prologue. The crew is enjoying a little downtime with lighthearted jazz playing in the mess hall as Ed and Kelly wish Chief Engineer Newton a fond farewell. You see, he's off to design a space station, which leaves an opening on the Orville. Now that Gordon's leg is back and better than ever, he's back to practical jokes. He and John took a piece of Yaffet and dropped it in the buffet, which Bortus ate, leading both of them to see Dr. Finn. After a delicate procedure, Yaffet recovers the tender morsel, and they're both on the road to recovery.
Ugh.
Kelly's in the process of formally reprimanding John and Gordon, but as she pulls up John's file, she's surprised to see the opening credits.
Oh, ba-ba-da-ba-ba. The scroll.
That's right. Act 1. Kelly shows Ed what she found. According to John's aptitude rating, he's the smartest carbon-based unit on the ship. Maybe he should be the new chief engineer. Ed has concerns. Kelly offers reassurance, and the Orville skims a quantum wake, knocking the lower engine out of alignment. They're out of danger, but they're also not going anywhere for a while. Kelly orders Lamar to help Isaac analyze the affected area of the ship. All seems normal, except for a few dead plants and a vacant crew quarters. A quantum wake shouldn't cause that, so it looks like we have a mystery on our hands. Kelly wants to put John Lamar in charge of the investigation. It's her job to assemble the best staff, and she's good at it. I mean, come on. Ed wouldn't be sitting where he is if he wasn't, right?
Excuse me?
Wait, what? Did Kelly arrange for his command? Maybe. She put in a good word with Admiral Halsey, who happens to be a good friend of her dad. I guess we'll never really know if Ed would have gotten that promotion on his own. Act 2. Ed asks Admiral Halsey for the truth, absolute candor. While Commander Grayson did make a case for his promotion, the Admiralty does have complete confidence in Captain Mercer. Now, he has proven himself worthy and has validated their trust in him. There's no doubt in anyone's mind anymore. So case closed, right? Kelly brings in John into her office to break the bad news to him. He's being given more responsibility. But why? Well, because of his intelligence. You see, people still want to be the best at what they do. Don't you want to be the best at what you do, John? Not really. He just kind of wants to do his job and go home and relax. Well, here's your chance to find out by being in charge of a task force to investigate the anomaly. On the bridge, a Horbalak smuggling ship is headed straight for the quantum wake. The Orville's hail is met by a dismissive Garav Kaluga from Captain Blavarok. So many Blavarocks. They enter and then exit the anomaly with no life signs aboard. A trip to the ill-fated vessel finds all the Blavarocks dead, with a case of the nosebleeds. Act 3. He's dead all right, but that's not all. There are 20 crates of Krill plasma rifles on board, and you know who'll be coming for those.
The Hovel rocks? Oh, the Krill. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they're Krill plasma rifles. Back on the Orville, Ed and Kelly are working out some of their issues. Ed still doubts whether he earned his command, while Kelly tells Ed to trust her. Ed says it's not her that he doubts. Yaphet wants to know why Lamar was put in charge of the task force. He feels like he's being skipped over, going as far as accusing the captain of racism. As the task force meets for the first time, John tries to break the ice with an exercise Gordon learned in summer camp. Seems like Lieutenant Dan likes restoring antique furniture. Oh, and pancakes. Yaphet thinks this is stupid, so, well, it's time to get to work. As John and Isaac look over the data, John sees that the anomaly isn't a pothole, it's a doorway. Act 4. The working theory is that the anomaly is an aperture to two-dimensional space. This caused the Horvalok vessel to phase from 3 dimensions to 2 and back to 3, killing all the Blavarocks on board. Ed waxes scientific, but this moment of exploration is interrupted by a Krill Armada. Armed with the Ancana and the power of Avis, the Krill will be there in 14 minutes. Not enough time to relive the quantum drive, but John has an idea. If they tech the tech, the Orville can hide in the two-dimensional space protected by a quantum bubble. Ed does a quick risk analysis and tells the crew to make it so. Figuratively. What he actually said was, all right, go. In engineering, the plan is working, but they have to get more field strength from the quantum bubble. Yaphet has a plan to really tech the tech, which raises the field strength to 95%. It's go time. The crew holds onto their asses as the Orville enters the quantum wake. Act 5. The crew is awed by the beauty of what may be a two-dimensional civilization. There's no way to communicate with them, so Ed orders the crew to get as much scanning data as they can. While the good guys hunker down and wait for the Krill to leave, it's time for some real talk between Ed and Kelly. You see, Ed's being a prideful ass. Kelly wonders if his 2D perception leaves any room for the concept that nobody does anything alone. The reason he's a good captain is because he's great at seeing all sides of a problem, except when it comes to himself. Ed listens, assumes positive intent, and just needs to work this out on his own. A fluctuation in the quantum bubble means it's time to exit the anomaly, except it just closed up. Another exit point is 4,000 kilometers away. That's about 2,400 miles for our U.S. audience. The ship's engines are dead, but they can use the shuttle to tow the Orville if they can erect a quantum bubble inside the shuttle. John can keep the quantum bubble stable, but he'll need a pilot. Ed volunteers. It's just something a guy's got to do when he's trying to work out a thing a guy's got to work out. Prepping the shuttle, the engineering team is blaming Yaphet for their predicament when John steps up and says, if you're going to blame anyone, blame me, earning an admiring glance from Isaac. The plan is working. Ed has a chance to ask John why he hides his brains. You see, John was brought up in a colony where they didn't trust eggheads, and he just wanted to fit in. Ed offers John the job of engineer, just as the quantum field destabilizes. Ed does some of that pilot stuff, and he trusts John to do some of that engineer stuff, successfully re-entering 3D space. Ed tells Kelly that he should have just thanked her. She put him where he belongs. Lieutenant Commander John Lamar now joins his new team in engineering as he takes his place where he belongs. The end.
Mike, you are right where you belong.
I am right where I belong. A couple of short months ago, I was up to host Jeopardy, and now I'm here co-hosting Mission Log the Orville with you, and I could not be happier about that. So,
do you think your background check could have sustained being put as the host for Jeopardy?
I certainly hope that mine could have.
Well, at least you didn't hire yourself to be the host of Jeopardy and beat out all the other celebrities that it should have been.
Yeah, well, naming myself to do it. Yeah, that's what happened. Rod put me in charge of the task force to find a host for Mission Log the Orville. So I
like,
put
you know
myself
who should do this.
of it. You know who should do this? Me. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what though? That's actually a fantastic segue to so many different things we're going to talk about. I'm not joking, because you want to talk about imposter syndrome. It's something that I deal with often, existing in a vacuum, and there's so many different things that we can talk about in this episode.
So many different things. The way that life is more three-dimensional and more of a game of Tetris than people just doing things on their own.
But again, yeah, like looking at things at a macro and micro level, our vision of things and how other people view it. So I'm excited to talk about all that. But I have to tell you the thing I'm the most excited about is realizing that Isaac is a cat. They are, Gordon wants a bridge cat, but then when you think about it, Isaac is the bridge cat that just doesn't want to cuddle all that much. But like,
yeah, he's sort of your non-cuddly cat, like not the right cat that cuddles with you, just the one that's there and a little bit condescending all the time.
Totally, but also kind of wants your attention too, and wants you to like. He's more cat than anyone else on that ship, and I was pretty pleased to go. I see you now, Isaac. I see you.
Well, you've got a lot of really good observations. If you don't mind, I'll just kind of like run over the particulars of the episode real quick.
Let's do that.
And this one was written by Seth MacFarlane, and I find his writing to be very impressive so far. Directed by Kelly Cronin, who's normally a script supervisor on the show, but did take a turn in the director's chair this time. Score, we have a new name, Andrew Cotty, very accomplished music man. This is his first contribution to the Orville. He'll be back for 3 more episodes in season 2, and maybe more beyond that. So kind of again, the tent getting bigger and bringing some more people in to fill some of those key roles. So Lieutenant Commander Steve Newton, right? We've talked about him on the show a little bit before. Kind of the sorry not sorry guy with Priya Levesque and a couple of other appearances.
Goodbye. Good riddance.
It kind of reminds me of season 1 of Next Gen, where we kind of had maybe not a revolving door of chief engineers, but had a number, and we're 10 episodes in now, and we're already getting chief engineer number 2, and also moving somebody from the bridge crew to chief engineer, like they did with Geordie LaForge. Started off season 1 with a red shirt on the command track.
That's right.
In season 1 before taking his rightful place as chief engineer. And I don't know, man, what does glug 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 mean as far as drinking a few pops? Is that is soda just looked down upon that much that it's frowned upon drinking in the workplace? I mean, I know it was a big deal for John Lamar to get permission to drink
that was the
soda
first
on
thing he asked for. It was the first thing he asked. Was like, I just like to drink some pop. And then Newton goes like, could you imagine drinking pop on yeah, like what? So I wonder if we're dealing with like a totally health conscious, somewhat society that's like, soda is all high fructose corn syrup and really bad for you.
Yeah, like if you drink that, it's going to have to be on the down low. Right,
because is it,
Because beer is still beer, I mean, because Ed called Gordon out for drinking beers on the shuttle ride over to the Orville on episode, and he was like, "You're drinking a beer? It's 9:00 in the morning. You shouldn't be drinking a beer."
No, you shouldn't be drinking a beer. But then he does when they're in that zoo, so whatever. But I wonder, it is really funny how they focus on soda.
Yeah, and there are times where I think if you're worried about perception and people overhearing you, you might say things like adult beverage or things like that. But that's still not very. That's not a very hard code to break.
No, it's not, and I don't think it is that, especially because we already know that John Lamar likes to drink soda, and Newton's going, "Could you imagine drinking soda?" So it is soda, it is pop.
It is.
But I just love the idea of like, they're not supposed to have drinks at the workstation, and it can't be soda. And it's just, I would love, when we eventually get to have a creator on and get to talk to them, I'd love to ask that specific question.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good to see Gordon back to his practical jokes.
Is it? He was upset for a piece of his body to be taken, and then he took a piece of Yafet's body like it was nothing. Although, to be fair, he did walk away telling Isaac it was the best practical joke he'd ever experienced.
He did. So you kind of thought, I mean, did that experience
influence him?
Take him off of, shy away from practical jokes, or did he just gain a deeper appreciation? Because the talk he had with Isaac almost made it seem like it was a deeper appreciation. So it makes me wonder, like, this was never on camera. But, in my head canon, I'm going to say sometime maybe prior to us seeing Alara Katan for the first time, Gordon may have shaved her eyebrows in episode 1, Old Wounds, because that was the one episode where she did not have eyebrows.
So I had to look that up, and you're totally right that they, obviously it's just a design choice that they made, that they decided that she should have eyebrows instead. But it's, I like the head canon of.
We got to retcon that. Yeah, it'll be maybe next season they'll say like that time. Oh, she's off the show now. Maybe when she comes back, she'll be like, I left because Gordon shaved my eyebrows.
It's totally possible. I think they were expecting people not to notice so much. I didn't even notice. I think sometimes we can't look too hard into things, especially when it comes to design. You know the story with Worf's forehead, right?
I just know it changed over time.
It did, because someone stole it between, I think season 1 and season 2, or season 2 and season 3. It was gone. Okay. So they had to make a new one, and I think it was easier to apply after the fact. And actually, my friend Mary Chifa, who plays Chancellor Laurel in season 1 and 2 of Discovery, the prosthetic was so much that once she got the scar across her face, it actually afforded them an opportunity to ease up on the intricacies of the prosthetic. So it's always going to be something that an artistic team is going to have to negotiate, like time versus effort versus aesthetic. And so they're always going to go, actually, this works, this doesn't work, that works. And so it's, no show is free from that.
Yeah, and as a diehard original series fan, and you even see it less drastically in Next Gen, but in the original series, if you watch the first dozen shows or so in production order, not air date order, because that totally takes things out, but in production order, you can see kind of an evolution from, the original second pilot, where no man has gone before, to the Corbomite maneuver, to the later episodes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then about episode 12, I think they kind of start to settle in. The changes become less current, but then there's just things they talk about the change, but the look stabilizes by then, in my mind.
Yeah, totally.
And you can see that's just a creative process.
Exactly. And we've talked about this. I've talked about this with theater actors, where you have to do your hair a certain style over and over again for performances, whether you're on Broadway for 8 performances a week or 3 performances a week if you're doing community theater. And it's only until the last performance you're like, this was my hair perfectly, I did it, the makeup perfectly. You're always just trying to get better at it, and then it never seems like you get the routine better than on the last night. So you're always going to try and find new ways to keep it fresh and do the best job.
That definitely makes sense, and I see that. And people see our show evolving also.
No, we're perfect.
I'm saying we're just different levels.
We're perfect.
Perfect from Jump Street. I like that. Yes. Speaking of evolving relationships, somewhat evolving creative directions, a little bit of a moment right there with Ed and Kelly on the couch when the ship got. It was. It's kind of like, ooh, we got work to do.
I do love, though, that they remind us that there's chemistry there, because. I don't know. It was just such a, you can do a lot with a little, and you don't always have to say something to get something across. My favorite moments on TV is when they're not trying to ham fist a bunch of plot, and they just gave us that one moment to make us go, okay, they like each other, and I like those moments. I'm a romantic, I do like that stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think you're totally right to point that out.
So you've got a note here that I'm really curious about.
Okay.
Concerning Gordon's nightmare.
Okay. Well, when we discover 2D space here and we're like recognizing that we're able to observe them, but they can't observe us, Gordon shares, I think, his waking nightmare going, oh my God, am I being observed by fourth and fifth or sixth dimensional beings?
Like all the time or just some of the time?
Exactly. I, too, had that existential crisis when I was 17 reading Slaughterhouse-Five, because they literally talk about how when two people are having sex in the third dimension, that there are fourth and fifth dimensional creatures also having sex with me. I think it was, I haven't read it in a while, but I remember going, holy crap. Holy bleep. But because I was raised Catholic, and I was raised that to think that if you do anything with yourself or another person before marriage, you've done something wrong against God. And then sometimes people would guilt you by going, well, your grandma's dead and she could see everything you do.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? So then add that to my scientific brain that doesn't adhere to a religious God, and I'm like, well, that doesn't get much better anyway. So there's fifth dimensional creatures going, what a weird human doing these human things.
Sort of the pragmatist in me says, I am just incredibly average. So there is not going to be anything I'm going to do that's going to shock anybody, man. If somebody wants to peek in, they're going to see just top of the bell curve.
I love that.
Another one of these guys. All right, fine. We'll.
And you know what? I feel that way because of the lack of privacy on the internet too. I'm like, you know what? All right, I get it. I'm a little jockey. I get that. I say some things that people go, wow, I can't believe you said that.
Yeah.
I'm normal.
Yep.
There are weirder people out there.
Yeah, you are. And it's interesting. Jumping into a quick reference Ed gave about the explanation of the book Flatland, and written in 1880. The author, it said written by a square. So the characters in the book are a square, mainly, a line, and a sphere. And the square lives in Flatland, two-dimensional space, kind of the lower class, the most simple, two-dimensional shape is a triangle, right? Three sides. So they are the lowest form, kind of the lowest class. You got the squares, who are kind of like middle class, maybe upper middle, and then you've got the circles, which are like the perfect beings, right? Sort of like infinite sides, if you will. That's kind of how I was taught to think of a circle. Well, he gets visited one day. He has a dream that he goes to line land, where there's only lines, and they can only see points. They can kind of only see down the edge of the square, so they only see that as a line. So he says, no, I've got two dimensions, man. I've got length and width. And they're like, you're crazy. Get out of here before we throw you in jail. So he leaves, and then he gets visited by a sphere, a three-dimensional, circular object, and the square cannot conceive of the sphere, and doesn't believe him. But as the sphere shows him, as he moves up and down in Flatland, the size of the circle that the square can perceive changes size. So then he uses that as proof that there is a three-dimensional land that actually gets to go visit. And he visits 3D land and can observe 2D land, right? So he can observe what's going on down there, just like Gordon's fear was that. And it turns out that the people in Flatland, at least the people in charge, know about 3D land, and they make it a secret, and they lock people up or incarcerate them and maybe even execute them for knowing about those things. So it's a whole class, caste, religious people in charge. It's a novella. It was written in 1880. I think a lot of it still holds up. I just did a little research on the book without actually reading it myself. But now I'm very interested in it. And you can see that just that observation of different dimensional beings thrown in there. So that's why the depth, I think, of the writing on the show is really, really impressive, because you can tug on any one of these strings and just go for miles.
Yeah, I think that's our challenge today. It's like, what do we want to focus on? Because you're right that they've given us a infinite facet of things to talk about, and I think they've done that really well. Yeah. And as we talk more about, and we go deeper, I don't think one thing was more right than the other. I don't think that they don't know that all the decisions that they made were 100% right, etc. And nothing is cut and dry in this episode. And I think that's a good thing I like to play in that too, and I'm looking forward to like debating some things with you.
Same here. I like the interplay with, well, I actually loved the interplay with John and Gordon in Kelly's office when they were like, did you think this was the wrong thing to do? And they were both like, no.
Yes.
No. Like, did you think Yaphet would be upset? No. Yes.
Yeah. It's so
just,
cute.
Reminded me of the scene in Dr. Gillian Taylor's pickup truck in Star Trek IV where Kirk and Spock are in there. And, do you like Italian? No. Yes. No. Yes. We love Italian.
It's very funny. Yeah, they those are good little comedic tropes, but it's still at the same time it does a good job in setting up that maybe John has a stronger moral compass than Gordon does,
Yeah, just a little bit of empathy that he showed that Gordon didn't have. Absolutely. Good call.
Totally. Because
I didn't even pick up on that.
Well, it does. It's just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And in the future episode, we'll see Gordon dally with what he actually wants out of his career too. But, we also have a pretty good understanding of Gordon. But from the beginning of the series, we knew that John was operating at a higher level, but intelligently wise, capably, but is just piloting a ship. So we knew that we were going to have to confront this eventually.
So picking up on that kind of nuance of John feeling that empathy for Yaphet that Gordon didn't feel, that's the kind of thing that you pick up in your 3D existence that my two-dimensional plane of consciousness does not. It
must be hard to be a man,
Yeah, it's just so speaking of life in 2D space. When the Orville was driving through Flatland, when it was driving through two-dimensional space, do you think it was just plowing through solar systems and planets and towns and cities and roads and?
Totally. They just world ended like a whole species. Like they just basically killed the dinosaurs. I don't know. I love the idea that they really think that they're not. And
they even said like, "Hey, are we causing any problems down there?" It's like, no, they're much too small to be a problem.
Like, how could you know that? How do you implicitly know that? Also, like, let's just expand our thoughts. Just like if you can reason that there is a heaven and a God, if there are people out there going, heaven exists, you know what? I'd sooner idealize that being fourth dimensional, right? Like, why not? Let's look at that as a fourth dimension.
Yeah.
What are things that they're causing our world to do? What is the butterfly effect of a fourth dimension? What's the butterfly effect of a second dimension? I don't have any answers, and I don't know, but I know that there are things in this world that we can't scientifically explain yet, and I bet you something happened to those beings.
A turning point in my life came at a point where I learned to understand and appreciate that it's not about having the answers. It's about knowing to ask the right questions. And those are the questions that you're asking that are so important, because people think generally that they have all the answers. I sort of honestly feel sorry for, but question their ability to know all things about all things and be confident in that knowledge.
I understand the need to want to have the answers, because it's not, even though I'm asking questions and you ask questions, we also want to know in some ways. That's why we're asking. And a lot of people derive comfort out of knowing things or feeling like they do or having a faith in something. So I think there's, going back to Community, our mutually favorite show, where Joel McHale says to Shirley, religion is like Paul Rudd to me. I get it. I understand the appeal, but I would never stand in line for it. And like, I would never take that away from somebody.
Sure.
So I would never take someone's need for feeling secure in this, or someone's ability to feel secure in this life and how they got there. I would question if it makes them feel superior or if they are lording that over somebody. So that's the only time when I have a hard time with people's dogma.
And even with the two of us both being raised Catholic, it's the religious scholars that I've come across and have learned to admire in my life are the ones that continue to ask the questions.
I'm with you on that, and I know we're diving into deeper thoughts here, and there's so much more to explore in this episode. But I want to ask, What about how's your feeling about Lieutenant Dan?
Well, I think they're throwing him in there. I think he's sort of one of those nice guys in the office that you run into that wants to fit in. He's like, God, you guys are great, man. I'd love to hang out with you more. I like
love
jokes.
Poor guy.
He's not gonna, and I just kind of, in Seinfeld when there was an episode where he was like going to a gym and a guy wanted to be his friend. He's like, look, I already have 3 friends. That's about all I can handle now. They're just kind of gaffing this guy off. And I think that is so funny. And then later on, the thing about pancakes was just how many times, in an office environment, does somebody walk, and maybe not even that, but does somebody walk up and take something out of context and just hijack the conversation? Like, hey, you guys like pancakes? And just Mercer had nothing to do with it, man. He's just like, yeah, we're not talking about that.
When did he say that? I thought he said that when he got the gumdrop.
Oh, it was, so he talked about liking pancakes when he introduced himself as, liking to refinish antique furniture.
Yeah.
He said, I also like brunch, man. Brunch is great. Banana walnut pancakes, mouthgasm.
Yeah.
But later on, when the quantum bubble was going to collapse, somebody in engineering made the comment that we got about 20 minutes before we turn it to pancakes. And Lieutenant Dan's walking by, he's like, pancakes?
That's right. Because didn't he say when he was trying to pitch himself to Gordon and John that, like, hey, we could get brunch or something?
Yeah.
I think the rule of 3 is strong in effect here. But poor guy.
Definitely is.
Well, because he also was the one who put elevator music on, right?
He did. He did.
He's just trying so hard. Is he the same person that spilled soy sauce in his pants? It's not the same person, right?
No, I can't remember the name of that person. Very little extended crew that we see, but Lieutenant Dan, I think he's all right. I like his particular brand of comic relief. And if I can, I think it's probably worth. Maybe not sort of a segment of the show, but maybe a question that we ask during this first part is, does the humor add to or detract from the episode or the show in general? But let's just talk about the episode.
With Gordon's question, right, about like, are they watching me? That's supposed to be a joke, but it also is a philosophical question also.
Yeah, and it fit right into something in the book that Ed mentioned, Flatland, that was not even those dots were left up to the audience to connect on their own. And I thought that was brilliant.
Lines.
Dots.
3D.
Yeah, there was also a Pointland, and I didn't go into that. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you have a point?
Well, the point was that in Pointland, there's only a single point. So you are sort of king, rule maker, all knowledgeable. So anything from any other dimension you are not willing to accept.
I see.
So that was Pointland. So interesting stuff. I thought even in a joke like that you could kind of peel back the onion and find deeper stuff within.
I think that's the challenge of any comedy. Are we just making jokes to make jokes, or can we further the story along? And again, like, do we need Ed and Kelly to say that they're attracted to each other, or can we just see that moment? Mm-hmm. So, I know that there are varying degrees on people's opinions with humor in this show, but if you can use it in a world where I relate to these characters, it doesn't detract from the story, and it's building the story like that moment, even though it's like a little, okay, chill out, Gordon, but it can be used well.
And if it advances the story, like you said, so the beginning, the practical joke with the piece of Yaffet and Bortus eating it and that kind of thing, that was the justification for Kelly to dig into John's service record. And his aptitude rating. So something had to be done. It could have been anything. Could have been, hey, we're looking for a new engineer. I want to look at anybody who's ever taken an engineering course at Union Point. Like, that could have been it. They used humor to do it. And I think it moved the story along. I was watching this airplane, actually, I was watching this episode on an airplane. I downloaded it to my my pad and was watching it on Tuesday morning first, and I was laughing out loud, and my wife was looking at me, as she often does, like I'm an idiot. But there were a couple of scenes with that and the Yaffet Bortus scene in sickbay where he's like, pick a hole, buddy. I gotta get there one way or the other. I'm sorry, my maturity level is off the chart on the low side, but I was laughing out loud.
No, it's wonderful. I couldn't agree more. I am not a fan of the humor and gags of this show. I'm not a fan of it. So we're on the same page. That was a grotesque moment, but also fantastic. It just was what it was. I think we're ready to dive deeper, much like Yaphet was in the colon.
Dive deeper into Bortus's colon in the next segment of the show.
Let's do that. I'll see you on the other side.
So we've come to the part of the show where we explore the big ideas in the episode, New Dimensions, to see if the meanings, morals, and messages are simply two-dimensional, and to discuss whether they align with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. So what I picked up out of this one right away was sort of that individual versus team player, and how your ability evolves over time, how your confidence evolves over time, how your trust in yourself and other people evolve as you sort of advance in career and advance in expertise and sort of just evolve as a human being. So kind of early on, personal leadership is being your best and knowing about how to gain competence and skill and sort of individual effort. And that way, when you're part of a team, you have credibility, you have competence, you have those kind of things. But you've got to improve, and improving always kind of requires admitting that you don't know everything. Right? So if you take a class, you've got to start with that vulnerability just to say, like, I don't know how to do this thing. I need to take a class to get better at it. All right, that's admitting to other people that you don't know everything. Right? It's a very simple, kind of very, very basic form of vulnerability that we see there. But it gives you an opportunity to sort of improve and grow and get better at things. And then you kind of evolve like Ed has from, individual effort person to team leader, now to captain. And as he does that, his team gets bigger, and he's not just worrying about himself, he's worrying about the team, and he has to be a servant leader. So help his people do better, serve and promote them, not just yourself, and to look out for their best interests, not your own. Now, John's kind of like on a little different rung of the ladder, right? He's going maybe from like individual, let's see, he's the navigator on the ship, right, even though he is a Class 8 helmsman. Right. He's the navigator. But he's sort of gained all of that kind of individual expertise that he's had to, and now it's time for him to be in charge of a team. And that's really, really kind of uncomfortable for him. And his situation is a little bit different. He knows he has the ability. It's almost like he doesn't trust the people around him to still like him when they see how capable he is. Where Ed is moving up the ladder, and he's now a captain, and he maybe doesn't trust his own ability as much because he's feeling like he didn't get himself there. He got himself there with help. So as those two individuals kind of take on new leadership roles, I think they're dealing with different trust issues. John is dealing with sort of trusting all the people around him to allow him to use his ability to his best. And Ed is sort of having trust issues with himself, trying to justify his position and whether or not he would have earned it by himself without the help of others. So that's kind of the big sort of thread that I saw run through the kind of the A and B plot in this show, and some stuff I'd like to maybe dig into a little bit more. But what'd you suss out for some of the bigger thoughts on the episode?
Well, yeah, I'm listening to you and how you viewed the journey of both of those men, and it is interesting because we see Ed being the benefit, getting to benefit off of Kelly recommending him to his position, and he didn't know that. And I am so glad it's on the table because one thing that I think that TV doesn't exemplify well is how to speak honestly and earnestly with people and how that can solve problems. Because if you have a bunch of people that speak honestly to each other, you don't have drama, or at least that's what people think, especially with sitcoms. Now,
What do you mean? If there was no misunderstanding in Three's Company, they'd all be pretty short episodes.
or we could actually just watch functional human beings having real life problems. But God forbid, what's the difference? Do I want a blonde or a brunette? I don't know. I should lie to her. I see it for what it is. I understand why they do it. But it's every week these TV people learn a lesson. I should have been honest with you, and they aren't the next week, and that's frustrating in a sense, because also people walk away thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't tell people the truth. So in one way, we're seeing. I'm glad that it's on the table that Kelly recommended Ed, as opposed to her having to hide that. And Ed having to deal with that in his own way is an interesting journey. And I don't know that I wouldn't have felt similarly. It's like, oh my God, did I not earn this on my own? And in a similar way, Kelly is recommending John to meet his potential as well, because she sees that in him and wants to encourage that. So I know that ego, or our sense of self, does have you should have a healthy sense of self and what you're capable of. And sometimes when your confidence in yourself wavers, it's not the worst thing to go to your friend and go, am I crazy, or am I really this good, or what have you. If I start to question myself, I don't know, it's like kind of for me it's a chicken and the egg question. Like, where do you get your sense of self? You have to you have to see yourself reflected in others and how you move through the world, but you also have to have confidence that what you offer is worthy as well. And we're all going to question our worthy and security and sense of self, and that goes into something you're going to talk about, is just imposter syndrome and what have you. But we just don't exist in a vacuum. So I'm bringing out a lot of points to say that I really, really, really hate that they skipped over Yaphet for the command position. They completely sidelined him from being in the running. He was next in line to get the promotion. They made him. He calls it out as speciesism, essentially, or racism, which, if in our current day, John Lamar might not be considered for promotion because he's black. Right. And so it's interesting that Yaphet is calling it how he sees it. And there's a particular thing that I'm still learning about right now, but we have some, I can't think of the right word, but misogynoir is hatred towards people of color or black people, and not realizing that you're doing it. How women are misogynists. Right. They're men that are misogynists.
Misogynoir. Sort of the tone.
Misogynoir for people of color or black people. And it can show up in so many different ways, including not being able to view women of color as able to be in positions of power, or just having certain prejudices that color the way that you move through the world, whether you realize it or not, or biases. And I wonder if they just don't see Yaphet as command material because he's the only gelatinous life form. And it's interesting that they say that. Like, he goes, this is racism. I am not conflating a fictional species to the real struggles of black
course
people.
not.
I just want to be clear, and I know you get that. I'm saying I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to share something that I'm currently learning about, which is misogynoir. And we're seeing that not happen against John here, which is wonderful. She sees that he has the potential to be in command. I just really, really, really do not like that Yaphet probably was supposed to be the one to get it, and John never showed interest in being a commander. So why did we just completely sideline Yaphet? It just doesn't. It's a sticking point for me in this episode that and again, I was like, listen, that's why I was trying to thanking you for bringing up all the elements of the storytelling here, and watching these two different people achieve self-actualization or beginning to trust their abilities. And so I can see it's like a great story that John gets to meet his full potential. But he was also pretty chill with just being a beer drinker that didn't have to do very much.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't really know what the message is here that they're trying to share with us.
Well, I think it was one message maybe at the expense of another. And when I was writing the recap, I'm very cognizant of how long it is, and I try to shave everything out that I can, but I just couldn't get rid of that encounter with Yaphet and Ed, where, he said, why are you putting that guy in charge? And even went as far as accusing him of racism, which I did leave in the recap because I thought it was very important. And there was almost a little bit of a trope in there where it says, oh, some of my best friends are gelatinous. Well, are they? But whether they are or not, it doesn't mean that you're not sort of a slave to your biases or, becoming using them subconsciously without even thinking of them.
Totally. I think, like the fact that he did leave that as a joke or not is it does mean it's a direct parallel storytelling.
Yeah, sure. No, they were shining I think they were definitely shining a mirror on us and how we do make those decisions based on subconscious thought that is well rooted in our subconscious for just because of how our culture is. I think honestly the more logical thing to have done, which is kind of what Ed wanted to do in the beginning, which was promote Yaphet because he's next in line. Well, that leaves, assistant chief engineer, that position open, which would be a great way for Lamar to go and work, learn the ropes in engineering. Like that would have made sense to me. Making him chief engineer from his position as navigator made about as much sense as making Chris Pine Captain Kirk captain of the Enterprise.
Totally.
In the first JJ movie. It's just like there's a lot of steps being skipped there. So I did not like that. But what I did like was the message that John is not living in a colony where people are afraid of smart people.
Yes.
Where there's this sort of, intellectual phobia where nobody wants to listen to, as he put it, an egghead. Nobody wants to listen to somebody who's always right. This is definitely a thread that I started to pull out in this episode, was this sort of death of expertise, motivation or theme that we went down, where nobody wants to believe the experts. Everybody's opinion is just as valid as everybody else's. And since, I can get on the internet and go to WebMD, I know just as much as my doctor. Like those kind of things will lead us to ruin. Experts are to be listened to. Now, maybe you don't want to necessarily follow their advice, but you have to consider it. And right now we're in a place where there's this fear of, or even distrust of experts. So what are we listening to? Whatever we want to, whatever already fits our own sort of motivation on that. And so John lived in this society where he couldn't trust the people around him to allow him to use all of his abilities. Well, now on the Orville, he can, and I thought that was a good sort of place to be in. Now he can trust the people around him, and Ed can trust himself because he's where he belongs to be. Oh, by the way, he can also trust probably the most competent person on the ship to help him, which is Kelly. And I'm going to go back to your question from the first couple of episodes. Why doesn't she have her own ship?
I don't really know.
Yeah. I think it's just a matter of time, quite honestly. Or maybe like Dr. Finn, she just likes to go where she's needed.
Yes, totally. But if she was on a similar command track, right? Like Ed, in order to be captain, would have had to have been more than likely an XO for somebody first. More than likely.
Sure.
So this makes me bring up the question I've had this entire time. If she's complaining that Ed isn't around and that like he wasn't there, she shouldn't have been either, because she's also on a command track. So I think her ambition is different, and that's okay too, and her values are different. I don't know. I think that's getting a little bit too much into the weeds, but it's not dissimilar from like Riker wanting to stay on
Sure.
on the Enterprise. It's interesting that you bring up a society that wants to believe that their opinion is right, and this is something I don't know if we've said yet on this episode, but you were talking outside of this, like the Flatlands deals with the caste system in so many ways, and in right now our society, whether we realize it or not, especially in America, we are in a caste system, and the majority of people that are anti-vax and anti-mask are people that are in the higher caste that don't want to change their lifestyle to benefit the lower caste, which the virus does disproportionately affect.
It certainly does. So it's basically lower caste and people of a certain political belief that are unvaccinated and that are being disproportionately affected by this.
Think about it in this way. And again, this is not my original idea. I read a fantastic Twitter thread that I will share when this episode comes out. But basically, one of the things that Trump said was, if you take out the blue states, we're doing really well with this virus, which immediately creates the Democrats or the minority or the lower caste is not of concern here. It literally paints that picture on the national stage. So then you build a resentment in people who feel like their opinion is correct because of their elevation in society. Mm-hmm. And that's why they don't want to have to change their lifestyle for the blue states, or there's this resentment. And again, this was all building before Trump and what have you. But if you can take yourself out of the equation of, well, this affects me, but let me look at the grander picture, I think Kelly's pretty good at doing that. This affects me in some ways, like having Ed with her all day, that affects her. But she also knows that the world will benefit from him being a captain. She also knows that the ship will benefit from John being a commander. We have to trust that her instinct is for the greater good as well. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to look at this.
There is. And like I said, there's so many different threads to tug out on this show. Real quick, I had some notes about a book called The Death of Expertise, The Campaign Against Established Knowledge and Why It Matters by Tom Nichols. But he defined the death of expertise as a stubborn insistence that everyone is as smart as everyone else, that expert opinion is meaningless, and that any attempt to dismiss such claims is just elitism. So when you have experts on things like climate change or the economy, we'll just kind of take those couple of things, right?
Sure.
And or maybe even we can throw disease, the study of communicable diseases, in there as well. And you have experts telling you things. Well, people think that their opinion is just as valid as that expertise, and they're going to do what they want, and that opinion is very valid, then decisions are being made for a society that are not well informed. And eventually bad things happen. And once those bad things happen, then you have to rely on the experts at that point to put the pieces back together. So
if we don't kill them,
yeah, exactly. If they're still around, and those kind of things are, that's brought up in a movie like Idiocracy, and it's also, we're honestly seeing it every day. So we
also saw it in Majority Rule, the episode that we've talked about.
Exactly. Facts are facts, Jessica, and the fact is that 74% of the people think this is false. So we'll say that. But Kelly did say something really, really good about Ed, and having spent some time myself in kind of a hierarchical corporate environment. I'll just say that there are times where you work for somebody you really admire and can learn from, and they're trying to elevate you to maybe take their position at some point because they know they're going to move on to bigger and better things. And then there's other times where you're just kind of stuck working for somebody who's not that smart, not that good a leader, and they don't really put your benefit really anywhere on their radar. They're just looking out for themselves. And Kelly said, I like working with you because you're a great captain. She did say I get to see you every day. So there's that little bit of, kind of chemistry thing going on there. But she also said you're a good captain because you can see all the different sides of a problem. And she said, except when it comes to you, because you're a prideful ass. And in order to see something from many, many different perspectives, you've got to value the perspectives of different people. Right. So just like in Flatland, if I'm looking at a shape, say I'm looking at a house from the outside and I'm like directly on the, one side of the house, I'm going to look up, I'm going to see a wall. As far as I know, there's only a wall.
Right. Sure.
Okay. And I've got to get the perspective from somebody else on the other side of the house if I'm not unable to move, and somebody on the front and the sides. And then you can see, okay, there's a garage, there's two walls, there's a roof, there's a driveway, and those kind of things. So you can get the big picture, but you're not going to get the big picture by yourself. You've got to communicate and get other people's perspectives. And if you want the big picture, you've got to get as many different vantage points as you can. And I think that's what she's saying Ed is good at. Now, he's also got to kind of turn that lens inward and looking at himself and say, hey, you've got this view of yourself that maybe you don't think you're worthy to be here. But hey, I've got this other vantage point over here as your FO. And I'm telling you right now that you are worthy to be there because I enjoy working for you because you do a good job as a captain. And being in a position like she is, where she's got, a captain that she enjoys working with and respects, that's gold. I mean, that really is. That's going to make her job so much easier than working for I don't know. People like to give Captain Jellicoe and Next Gen a hard time. So we'll pick on him. It's going to be better than working for Captain Jellicoe.
Great. Screw that guy. I don't even know if I know that character, but I hate him.
Maybe Commander Decker or Commodore Decker in the original series. He got his whole... all his crew killed.
Great.
He got all the Blavaroks killed. He's the worst.
He's the worst. No matter what situation we are in, there's something to learn from it. And so at the end of the day, as long as you're trying to remain as true to yourself and as good to others as you possibly can, that's the best you can do.
Yeah. So my dad used to say when he got done with a day's work, he'd be like, fooled him again.
Fooled them again.
Yikes. So, and that's a little bit about getting into the imposter syndrome thing.
Yeah.
Which, what you mentioned, and I think that's maybe what Ed was dealing with a little bit.
Yeah,
okay, now I'm in this captain's position that I don't deserve to be in because I didn't do it all by myself. Come on. No, life is a game of Jenga, man. It's not anything else. I mean, all those pieces got to get stacked on top of each other and they got to fit together right, and everybody's got to be able to benefit from, standing on the shoulders of other people and learning from them, and then they learn from you, and then that other piece gets moved up, and everybody keeps moving up and achieving new heights. So it's something that I think he had to learn. But if anybody hasn't heard of it, imposter syndrome, the experience of feeling like a phony. You feel as though at any moment you're going to be found out as a fraud, like you don't belong where you are, and you only got there through dumb luck. The problem is that folks that do feel like that will often go to great lengths to prepare for a presentation or to study for a test or to prepare for an interview. And then when it goes well, they kind of convince themselves the reason it went well is because I did all of that extra prep work and I never really did have the ability to do that. So if that sounds familiar to anybody,
talk to your therapist.
Talk to your therapist. We are not mental health professionals, although there is a great recommendation for a mental health professional service that they advertise on Mission Log. And you can hear about that there. But if anybody else feels that way, trust me, I think from time to time, we all share your pain.
Yeah, it was like one of the biggest experiences I had going into improv specifically was, oh my God, what am I doing here? The best way that my therapist described it was, it's just like Wizard of the Oz. You're expecting someone's going to pull the curtain back and go, what? You're not a wizard? And I think a healthy amount of questioning whether you can get better at something or grow at something is good, and being honest with yourself, whether you're a fit for something is good too, but then what do you base that off of? What are you really looking for? Where's the validation coming from? How do you get self-validation? These are all sorts of little factors that contribute to self-esteem and self-competence that doesn't have a clear equation to it, necessarily.
So that definitely sounds like a moral meaning and or message on the show. So we can probably just kind of roll into
segue to that.
Into that. Like you just said, trusting in your own ability, trusting in your own, preparation, and that you are going to end up where you should be. I think we're all good, messages and morals in this.
Sure.
In this show. I think Ed gets to take a step in his journey by recognizing that it's okay to get help.
Mm-hmm. Yes, totally.
But he still has abilities, and that's okay. Like they're not mutually exclusive things, right? You can get help from other people and still be a capable human being. And I think John learns that it's okay to use his abilities that I think he always knew he had, and he's not going to be ostracized by his extended family or his coworkers. I suppose I think of him extended family. When I'm working, it's I definitely spend as much, if not more, time with my coworkers than I do with my family.
Yeah, you're totally right. I think it's a wonderful way to look at it. Is when you're in the right environment, you can reach potential from a lot of different ways. You're gonna be, grow where you're planted if you want to think of it that way, but make sure you're planted in a good bed if you're gonna do that, in a good garden. So, and then they are both John and Ed are planted in a good garden. I just pour Yaphet. That's my other pour Yaphet.
Yeah, I don't. I was not.
I don't think that resolves well, personally.
I don't. What I did think resolved well, and showed, honestly, a lot of positive character on Yaphet's part. Because who was the one who gave the idea to really tech the tech and get the quantum field efficiency or strength from 65 up to 95%, or 60-something% up to 95%? That was Yaphet. Right, that was Yaphet putting his, maybe feelings of being slighted aside, being the bigger individual, and offering to help, and really offering a solution. When he could have just been like, you know what, you wanted my job so bad, you can have it.
Yep, totally.
And then just sitting back and watching John fail, and. Maybe they would all die, but at least he would have, maybe been right as they were all getting, smushed into pancakes. Did somebody say pancakes?
Also, Dan was Captain DICK. Also,
Lieutenant Dan?
Right? Because he was like, oh, maybe make such a bad idea when they made fun of Yaphet.
Was it? Yeah, because it was kind of all of them. There was a kind of a non-introduced.
Mean girls.
Yeah, I think there was a girl, there was a dude, and there was Lieutenant Dan. And they were like, well, it was his harebrained scheme that got us into this mess anyway. And I loved that John stood up for Yaphet. It was like, look. It was his idea, but I decided to take it. You want to get mad at anybody, get mad at me. And the fact that Isaac kind of gave him almost like a approving nod at that point. He's there to learn about humans, right? And learn about biological life forms, I should say, carbon-based units. And I saw him sort of give a nod of understanding now, of learning. Again, this is just what I took from it. If these folks that make the Orville are going to put something out there, then it's up to me to find meaning in it, up to us to find meaning in it. But that to me was Isaac learning something about how a leader should behave.
Totally. And it is the thing at the end of the day that makes me a little bit more comfortable that John gets promoted over Yaphet.
And that Yaphet became such a good team player. Now, I think that only shows that Yaphet's a class act.
And probably deserving of the commandership as well. But carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, but carry on. So it was, unfortunate that he didn't get it. And I do see that.
It's just a sticking point for me, but there is so many other wonderful aspects of how this goes down.
And it was a sticking point that's worth noticing, a sticking point that I think everybody should
examine,
be cognizant of, and examine if you're ever in that position of having to make a decision that you want to be able to question everything. God, I've been fortunate to be around some fantastic people, and I'm thinking about one in particular, and I don't want to name any names, but
you know who you are.
But you know who you are, and I can narrow it down to 1 billion people by saying last name Patel. Well, it's a very common last name.
Yeah, no, I got it.
And, he will just, every time I make an assumption, he'll say, hey, bud, take a step back and think about what you're saying. And when I do, I'm able to uncover something else that I didn't even know I was doing. And that person has been my conscience for, gosh, about a decade at this point, and just very lucky to have them as part of my life, because it has given me an opportunity to grow and evolve, because I had so many even unrecognized biases that were affecting my decision-making process, that just being able to sort of unscrew those from the equation has helped quite a bit.
He's your Kelly.
He's my Kelly.
That's very sweet. All right, Patel, whoever you are.
So, we always kind of end this up with, does the episode align with the Roddenberry philosophy or doesn't it? And, we talk about things like, optimism and inclusion and diversity and that kind of thing. But I wanted to kind of get a little bit more personal with that in this episode as we wrap it up. So what I was asking is, like, what does Star Trek do, for me? Why have I spent most of my life as a fan? And what are we and what is Rod trying to accomplish with this show? And I'll kind of start, with what are we trying to do with the show? And I think it's, we're trying to catalog his dad's legacy and his mom's legacy also. This is an exploration of, and Mission Log started with an exploration of, people say Star Trek matters, but doesn't matter, and why doesn't matter? And, do the shows have, do they have a message? Do they have a moral? Do they have a meaning? And, with Mission Log proper, it's does the show stand the test of time? Well, I think we've been able to suss some messages, morals, and meanings. Some that really hit the mark. Others with the Orville that just raised the conversation so that we were able to talk about things, but maybe didn't kind of handle things quite as succinctly or on point as we had hoped. But all of it for me is about trying to be a better person, and I look at us and where we are, maybe where we were in the 60s, and then the 80s with Next Gen and now, and how do we get to that next level? How do we get to the point where we've moved beyond personal greed and our own personal agendas, and how do we put the betterment of other people ahead of our own, so that that rising tide, like you guys say, that rising tide raises all boats. Mm-hmm. And when I look at an episode like this, the question I'm going to ask myself is, does it do that? And I think it does, because we see somebody like Ed Mercer, who is still, and it's not a linear path. Nothing is. It's always kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and kind of a path that sort of loops back on itself. Ed's still learning how to be a captain. He's learning how to be a good one. And he's learning how to have confidence in himself, and he's learning how to put what's good for his people, what's good for his ship, what's good for the mission ahead of what's good for him. And he learned today that it's not all about him. Again, that was a message maybe we visited a little bit before, but it's a message that says it's part of a team. He's part of a system. He's part of a crew that all fits together, and everything helps. Everything works better when everybody's working together, trying to help each other, and it's okay to be the one getting the help. And I think John is able to move up and take his next step along his journey, because he is now willing to trust not just his own abilities. I mean, I don't think there was any indication that he had any doubt of his abilities on an individual basis.
Right.
He did express some lack of ability to be a commander.
Or want, even. Yeah.
Or want. And, said, this is why, I shouldn't be a commander, or something along those lines. As he is demonstrating the exact things that you want in a commander, ironically. But he's able, I think, to take the next step and evolve, down his path because of the trust that he's able to have in his crewmates and move forward. And I think those two things, just how to evolve as a human being. We're only here for a certain number of days. And at this point in my life, man, I'm counting days. So you got to, if you don't take advantage of them to grow and evolve a little bit every day, you're just wasting time. And there's different challenges that people have at different times in their life. And I've had them and other folks have too, that you can't, sometimes you've just got to get through the day. You've just got to get through the day, and you've just got to win that day and win that battle. But if you've got a chance to grow and evolve and improve, and you got to take advantage of it when you can, because there are going to be days where you're just fighting to get through the day,
and you never know who's going through what or why. I think that's a beautiful way to put it, Mike. I'm gonna say that it exemplifies some of the Star Trek philosophy in that since the beginning of the show, it has given people an opportunity to see themselves in a world where they might not have been seen otherwise. As far from, Nichelle Nichols as Uhura, even to an Asian helmsman and, a female captain and now a black female captain. And, they definitely are, which leads to Whoopi and all these things, and people feeling like they can be in NASA because of the show. And in some ways, by seeing John Lamar's potential, whether he wants to see it or not, is another example of, you can see yourself in this, and we see you in this, and you can exist in this. And so I think that this episode gives us that as well. Not too bad, Mike. Not too shabby. Thanks for seeing whatever you see in me.
Oh, I am quite impressed with you. You are an exceptional individual.
I'm okay.
I will just say that, and I will also say that Mission Log, the Orville, is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer Rod Roddenberry. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is podcasts.roddenberry.com.
Join us next time on Mission Log, the Orville, as we discuss mad idolatry, which is what Mike's experiencing of me right now. This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.